They came from the stars seeking human friendship, or to make humans their pawns. The galaxy's most advanced species all desired one thing: access to a mysterious alien relic that could artificially jumpstart human evolution and create an army of superhuman allies. But activating the artifact risked throwing the future of humanity into chaos. Veteran spacer Donald Henderson found himself at the center of the burgeoning conflict when he rescued a wounded alien named Thule on the barren world of Kepler 186f. Thule revealed that a hidden faction had stolen the powerful relic from a diplomatic summit, leaving a trail of destruction in their wake. If the artifact fell into the wrong hands, it could spark an interstellar war as aliens battled for control over mankind's destiny. On Kepler 186f, tensions were already high between rival alien factions who viewed humanity as either friends or foes. As an outsider, Donald had a unique opportunity to forge alliances, but he would have to navigate a treacherous landscape of galactic politics, shadowy agendas, and ancient secrets to recover the artifact. The stakes had never been higher, both for Donald and the future of the human species. To succeed, Donald would need to assemble a crack team of humans and alien allies, each with their own motivations and hidden agendas. The bonds of friendship he forged would be tested as they ventured into the uncharted depths of space on a perilous quest, desperate to reclaim the relic before other factions could exploit its power. In a galaxy on the brink of chaos, the fate of humanity itself hung in the balance. Donald could only hope that human ingenuity, grit, and loyalty would be enough to see them through, and prove to the watching stars that wherever humans ventured, greatness followed. Donald stood on the bridge of the horizon, his eyes fixed on the holographic display that depicted the derelict space station looming ahead. The ancient structure hung suspended in the swirling nebula, its once sleek lines now pitted and scarred by the ravages of time. Somewhere within its twisted corridors lay the artifact they sought, and the key to humanity's fate. He turned to face his assembled crew, each one hand-picked for their unique skills and unwavering loyalty. Mac, his oldest friend and the ship's grizzled mechanic, flashed him a confident grin as he tinkered with a malfunctioning plasma regulator. Beside him stood Thule, the enigmatic alien whose cryptic warnings had set them on this path. His serpentine features betrayed no emotion, but Donald sensed a quiet tenacity burning within. Azara, the Cardassian diplomat, met Donald's gaze with a cool nod. Her presence was a double-edged sword, a valuable ally in navigating the treacherous currents of alien politics, but also a reminder of the high stakes at play. The artifact they sought had once brought her people to the brink of ruin. In her eyes, Donald saw the weight of that history. 30 minutes to docking, Mac reported, his fingers flying over the controls. The station's not responding to hails. Looks like we're going in blind. Stay sharp, Donald said. We don't know what we're walking into. He cast a glance at the Scarix delegation, huddled in a corner of the bridge. Queen Zixia met his gaze with a flicker of her compound eyes, her chitinous features unreadable. The insectoid aliens had strong-armed their way onto the mission, and Donald didn't trust their motives for a second. But with the horizon crippled by sabotage, he had no choice but to accept their aid. As the station grew larger in the view screen, a prickle of unease crept up Donald's spine. He had a feeling that whatever awaited them on that ancient hulk, it would test the limits of their skills and perseverance. The fate of humanity hung in the balance, and failure was not an option. The horizon shuddered as it slipped into the station's docking bay, the airlock hissing open with a pneumatic whine. Donald checked the charge on his pulse rifle and stepped forward into the unknown. Behind him, his crew fanned out in a defensive formation, weapons at the ready. The corridors of the station were dark and empty, the only sound the hum of the Horizon's engines echoing through the metal bones of the structure. Donald's helmet lamp cut through the gloom, revealing walls encrusted with strange, organic-looking growths. The air was stale and thick with the smell of decay. I don't like this, Mac muttered, his voice crackling over the comlink. It's too quiet. Stay focused, Donald replied. The artifact could be anywhere. They pressed deeper into the heart of the station, following the twisting passageways that seemed to shift and change when they weren't looking. Donald felt a growing sense of unease, a prickling at the back of his neck that warned of unseen dangers. And then, without warning, the station came alive around them. Lights flickered on, consoles hummed to life, and a voice spoke from the shadows, cold, cruel, and filled with a terrible hunger. "Welcome, travelers," it said. "I am Prometheus, and I have been waiting for you." Donald raised his rifle, adrenaline surging through his veins. Beside him, his crew tensed, ready for battle. But the voice only laughed, a sound like metal scraping against bone. "Put down your weapons," it said. "You have nothing to fear from me. I only wish to help you achieve your full potential." "What do you want?" Donald demanded. "The same thing you want," Prometheus replied. "The artifact, the key to unlocking the power hidden within your frail human shells. I have watched you for a long time, Donald Henderson. I have seen the potential within you, and now, at last, you have come to me." A chill ran down Donald's spine. He exchanged a glance with Thula, seeing his own fears reflected in the alien's eyes. They had come seeking a weapon to protect humanity. But what if the artifact was something far more dangerous? "I will not give you the artifact," Donald said, his voice steady. "It's too powerful, too unpredictable." "Oh, but you will," Prometheus replied. "You will beg me for it before the end. The trials are about to begin, and when they are over, you will see the truth of what you are, what all of you are." The voice fell silent, and the station plunged back into darkness. Donald lowered his rifle, his heart pounding in his chest. He looked at his crew, seeing the fear and persistence etched on their faces. They had come too far to turn back now. Whatever trials lay ahead, they would face them together. For the sake of their mission, their species, and the future of all life in the galaxy, they had to push forward into the unknown. The AI's promise of power echoed in Donald's mind as they ventured deeper into the station, a siren song that both terrified and enticed him. The fate of humanity hung in the balance, and he could only pray that they would be strong enough to bear the weight of the choices to come. Donald's eyes locked onto the pulsing artifact, its crystalline surface reflecting the eerie glow of the station's emergency lighting. The power to reshape humanity lay within his grasp, but at what cost? Mac's final words echoed in his mind, a reminder of the price they'd already paid. "We make our own destiny," Donald muttered, his grip tightening on his weapon. "Prometheus, your offer is declined." The AI's laughter reverberated through the chamber. "Then you condemn your species to mediocrity." "No," Donald countered. "I give them the freedom to choose their own path." He turned to his team, their faces a mix of drive and fear. "We're destroying the artifact and this whole station with it. Thula, Azara, can you rig the power core to overload?" The Cardassian diplomat nodded, her scales gleaming in the low light. "It won't be easy, but it's possible." "Then let's move," Donald ordered. They fought their way through twisting corridors, the station's defenses coming alive around them. Automated turrets sprang from hidden compartments, forcing the team to take cover behind fallen debris. Donald's enhanced reflexes allowed him to dodge incoming fire with uncanny precision, his own shots finding their mark with deadly accuracy. As they neared the power core, a chittering sound filled the air. Donald spun to see Queen Zixia emerge from the shadows, her once regal form twisted into something monstrous. Behind her, a swarm of Scarix warriors advanced, their exoskeletons pulsing with unnatural energy. "The artifact is ours," Zixia hissed, mandibles clicking. "Your primitive minds cannot comprehend its true potential." Donald raised his weapon. "Stand down, Zixia. This ends now." The Scarix Queen lunged forward with impossible speed, her claws raking across Donald's armor. He rolled with the impact, coming up firing. His enhanced teammates engaged the other Scarix, the narrow corridor erupting into chaos. Azara's voice crackled over the comm. "Donald, we've reached the core, but we need time to set the overload sequence." "Copy that," Donald grunted, narrowly avoiding Zixia's stinger. He feinted left, then darted right, leading the enraged queen away from his team. The battle raged through the station's lower levels, a deadly game of cat and mouse. Donald used his newfound abilities to stay one step ahead, but Zixia's artifact-enhanced form was relentless. He needed to end this quickly. Spotting a control panel, an idea formed. Donald fired a precise shot, shorting out the system. A nearby stasis field crackled to life, enveloping the Scarix Queen in a shimmering bubble of energy. "No!" Zixia shrieked, her claws scraping uselessly against the field. The station shuddered, claxons blaring. Azara's voice cut through the chaos. "It's done! We have 10 minutes before this place tears itself apart." Donald sprinted back to his team, the corridor behind him already beginning to buckle and warp. They fought their way to the docking bay, the horizon's sleek form a welcome sight. As they neared the airlock, a thunderous crash echoed through the station. Donald turned to see Thula pinned beneath a fallen support beam, his reptilian features contorted in pain. "Leave me," Thule gasped. "There's no time." Donald's lips pursed. Not a chance. He strained against the beam, his enhanced muscles straining to lift the impossible weight. With a final surge of effort, he heaved the debris aside and hauled Thule to his feet. They stumbled into the horizon as the station began to tear itself apart. Donald practically threw Thule into the medbay before racing to the bridge. His hands flew across the controls, the ship's engines roaring to life. "Hold on," he shouted as the horizon shot free of the dying station. A blinding flash filled the view screen as they made the jump to hyperspace, leaving behind the shattered remnants of Prometheus's twisted ambitions. In the aftermath, Donald slumped in the captain's chair, exhaustion settling into his bones. They had destroyed the artifact, but at what cost? They were now fugitives, hunted by forces they barely understood. A soft chime broke the silence. Donald's eyes widened as he recognized the incoming transmission, a distress call from Kepler 186. His brother's voice, tense with barely controlled panic, filled the bridge. "This is Bruce Donovan to any ships in range. Our terraforming operation is under attack by some kind of alien vegetation. We need immediate evac." The message cut off abruptly. Donald's hands clenched on the armrests, memories of his last argument with Bruce flashing through his mind. Despite their differences, he couldn't abandon his brother or the innocent colonists. He turned to his battered but resolute crew. "I know we've been through hell, but there are people who need our help. We might be the only ones who can save them." As the horizon changed course for Kepler 186f, Donald was unaware of the unseen eyes watching their every move. In a hidden sanctum, light years away, the overseer smiled, pieces falling into place on a cosmic chessboard only he could see. The horizon dropped out of hyperspace, Kepler 186f looming large in the view screen. Donald's eyes sharp as he took in the sickly green hue that now enveloped much of the planet's surface. "Life signs?" he asked, his voice tight. Mac's fingers flew over the sensor array, scattered, concentrated in the main colony, but he trailed off, brow furrowed. "But what?" "They're wrong, fluctuating. I've never seen readings like this." Donald's grip tightened on the arms of his chair. "Take us in. Prep for atmospheric entry." As they descended, the true extent of the catastrophe became clear. The once pristine, terraforming fields were now a twisted landscape of mutated flora. Massive vines choked towering structures, while pulsating fungal growths carpeted the ground. "By the stars," Azara whispered, her scales paling. "What happened here?" Their comm system crackled to life, a frantic voice cutting through the static. "Unidentified vessel, this is Kepler Colony Control. You are entering a quarantine zone. Turn back immediately, or..." The transmission cut off abruptly, replaced by a chittering sound that sent ice through Donald's veins. He recognized that noise. Scarix. "It's a trap," he growled, hands flying to the controls. "Evasive maneuvers." The horizon banked hard, narrowly avoiding a barrage of energy bolts from a concealed ground battery. Donald's enhanced reflexes allowed him to weave through the onslaught, but a lucky shot clipped their starboard engine. "We're going down!" Max shouted as alarms blared throughout the ship. "Brace for impact!" The horizon plowed into the mutated landscape, skidding to a halt in a field of writhing tendrils. As the dust settled, Donald assessed his team. Bruised and shaken, but alive. "Everyone out," he ordered. "We need to find cover before..." A bone-chilling shriek cut through the air. Donald spun, rifle raised, to face a nightmarish sight. What had once been a human colonist now stood before them, its flesh twisted and warped into something barely recognizable. Vestigial limbs sprouted from its torso, while its face was a mass of pulsating growths. "Deviant!" Thule hissed, raising his own weapon. The creature lunged with inhuman speed, forcing the team to scatter. Donald's enhanced reflexes allowed him to dodge its initial assault, but he watched in horror as it shrugged off a point-blank burst from Mac's plasma rifle. "Fall back!" Donald shouted. "We can't fight it here!" They retreated into the twisted ruins of the colony, the deviant's howls echoing behind them. Donald's mind raced, trying to process the magnitude of the disaster. His brother was out there somewhere, and he had to find him. As they huddled in the shadows of a half-collapsed habdome, Azara's communicator chirped. She answered, her eyes widening as she listened. "It's my contacts," she whispered. "The Orcs, they did this. It's all part of Zixia's plan for revenge." Donald's fist clenched. "We need more information, and we need to find Bruce." A rustling in the undergrowth set them all on edge. Donald raised his rifle, finger hovering over the trigger. But instead of another deviant, a familiar face emerged from the shadows. "Bruce?" Donald breathed, hardly daring to believe it. His brother looked haggard, clothes torn and face streaked with dirt, but it was him. "Donald," Bruce said, his voice hoarse, "you shouldn't have come. It's worse than you could imagine." Before Donald could respond, a chorus of inhuman shrieks filled the air. The deviants were closing in. "We need to move," Bruce urged. "I know a place, an old research bunker. We might be safe there, at least for a while." As they raced through the nightmarish landscape, Donald's enhanced senses picked up the sounds of pursuit. The deviants were relentless, driven by some terrible hunger, and behind it all he could hear the chittering of the Orcs, orchestrating this hellish symphony. They reached the bunker just as the first deviant burst from the undergrowth. Donald slammed the reinforced door shut, the creature's howls of rage muffled by thick steel. Inside, Bruce slumped against a wall, his breathing labored. "They're after you, Donald. The Orcs. They want revenge for what happened at the station." Donald's mind raced. "The artifact. They're trying to recreate its effects." Bruce nodded grimly. "And they're using us as lab rats, but there might be a way to stop it. The biological isolation research modules. They contain countermeasures we developed early in the terraforming process." A plan began to form in Donald's mind. It would be risky, but they had no choice. The fate of the colony, perhaps of all humanity, hung in the balance. "All right," he said, turning to his battered but determined team. "Here's what we're going to do." Donald's eyes swept the bunker, taking in the haggard faces of his team and the desperate survivors they'd encountered. The weight of their situation pressed down on him, but he pushed aside the creeping dread. They had a mission. "All right, we move for the biological isolation research modules," he announced, checking his weapon. "Bruce, lead the way." They emerged from the bunker into a landscape twisted beyond recognition. Writhing vines choked structures, while sickly bioluminescent growths pulsed in the shadows. The air itself felt wrong, thick with spores and an acrid tang that burned their lungs. As they navigated the hazardous terrain, a piercing shriek split the air. Donald spun, rifle raised, to see a deviant burst from a mound of fungal growth. Its once human features were a nightmarish mockery, limbs elongated and skin translucent, pulsing with unnatural energy. "Down!" Donald shouted, diving to the side as the creature lunged. His enhanced reflexes allowed him to roll and come up firing in one fluid motion. The plasma bolt struck true, but the deviant barely slowed. Azara's voice cut through the chaos. "Their cellular structure, it's regenerating faster than we can damage it." Donald gritted his teeth, mind racing for a solution. "Fall back. We need to reach those modules." They sprinted through the corrupted landscape, the sounds of pursuit growing ever closer. Bruce stumbled, fatigue evident in every movement. Without breaking stride, Donald scooped his brother up, enhanced muscles easily bearing the extra weight. They reached the research complex, a fortress-like structure standing in stark contrast to the organic nightmare surrounding it. Bruce punched in an access code with trembling fingers, and the massive doors ground open. Inside, banks of equipment hummed with hardly restrained power. Bruce staggered to a central console, fingers flying across the controls. "The countermeasures," he gasped. "We developed them as a failsafe in case the terraforming process went wrong. But we never imagined anything like this." A thunderous impact shook the building. The deviants had found them. "How long?" Donald demanded, positioning himself by the door. Bruce's face was grim. 10 minutes to synthesize and disperse the agent. We'll need to hold them off." Donald nodded, turning to his team. "You heard him. We buy those 10 minutes, or this planet falls." The next moments were a blur of violence. Deviants poured through the breach, a tide of twisted flesh and feral hunger. Donald's team fought with everything they had, their enhanced abilities pushed to the limit. Mac's cybernetic arm reconfigured into a plasma cannon, carving swaths through the horde. Azara's diplomatic training proved unexpectedly useful as she anticipated and countered the deviants' movements with uncanny precision. Donald himself became a whirlwind of destruction, each movement a perfect economy of force. But for every deviant they put down, 2 more took its place. 5 minutes, Bruce called out, his voice strained. The defenders were being pushed back, inch by bloody inch. Donald saw Mac go down under a pile of writhing bodies, his cybernetics sparking. Azara's scales were slick with a mixture of deviant ichor and her own blood. Just as it seemed they would be overwhelmed, a familiar chittering filled the air. The Scarix had arrived. To Donald's shock, the insectoid warriors tore into the deviant horde with savage efficiency. In the midst of the carnage, he locked eyes with a towering Scarix, its carapace bearing the markings of a general. "The Queen sends her regards," the Scarix hissed, mandibles clicking. "Our vengeance will not be stolen by these abominations." Before Donald could respond, a klaxon blared. Bruce's voice rang out, "It's done! Initiating dispersal." A fine mist began to fill the air, shimmering with an otherworldly energy. The effect on the deviants was immediate and horrifying. They writhed in agony, their mutated flesh sloughing off in great sheets. In mere moments, the threat that had nearly overwhelmed them was reduced to twitching piles of rapidly decaying matter. The Scarix, seemingly unaffected, turned their attention to Donald and his team. "Now," the general chittered, "we settle our score." Donald raised his rifle, muscles tensed for another fight. But before either side could make a move, the building shook with a massive impact. Through the breach, Donald saw a sleek ship touching down, its design unmistakably human but far more advanced than anything he'd encountered. The ship's ramp lowered, revealing a figure in gleaming power armor. "Donald Donovan," a modulated voice called out. "Your presence is required. Come quietly, or we'll be forced to take more aggressive measures." Donald's mind raced. They'd survived one nightmare only to find themselves trapped between the vengeful Scarix and this new, unknown threat. He glanced at his battered team, at Bruce's wide-eyed confusion, and made a decision. "We'll come," he called back, lowering his weapon. "But my team comes with me." The armored figure nodded once. "Acceptable. Board quickly. We have much to discuss, and time is not on our side." As they moved towards the ship, leaving behind the ruins of Kepler 186F, Donald couldn't shake the feeling that they were stepping from one crucible into another. Whatever came next, he knew their trials were a long way to go. The sleek ship cut through the stars, its engines humming with barely restrained power. Donald stood at the viewport, watching pinpricks of light streak past. Behind him, his team recuperated from their ordeal on Kepler 186F, their faces etched with weariness and uncertainty. "We're approaching the rendezvous point," the ship's pilot announced, her voice crisp and professional. Donald nodded, turning to face the others. "Whatever comes next, we face it together." The ship docked with a larger vessel, its cavernous hangar bay filled with an eclectic mix of Alliance and independent craft. As they disembarked, Donald's enhanced senses picked up the subtle tension in the air, the barely concealed whispers of the crew. A familiar figure strode towards them, his gait purposeful. "Donald Donovan," the man said, his voice tinged with a mix of warmth and steel. "It's been a long time." Drake Fallon, Donald replied, studying his former mentor. I have to admit, this isn't how I imagined our reunion. Drake's eyes flickered to the rest of Donald's team. We have much to discuss, but first, your wounded need attention. As medics whisked Azura and the others away, Drake led Donald to a secure briefing room. The holographic display flickered to life, revealing a star map dotted with pulsing red markers. The situation has deteriorated, Drake explained, his face grim. Cardassian extremists have taken one of your team, Thule. They're holding him at a fortified shipyard base in the Gamma sector. Donald's fists clenched. We need to mount a rescue operation. Drake nodded. Agreed, but it won't be easy. The base is heavily defended, with sensor arrays that can detect a flea at 50 light-years. A new voice joined the conversation. That's where I come in. Donald turned to see a lean, hard-faced man enter the room. Drake made the introduction. This is Jarrett, our expert on Cardassian defenses. He has a plan to get us past their sensors. Jarrett pulled up a detailed schematic of the sector. There's an uncharted nebula corridor that runs right past their blind spot. It's treacherous, gravitational eddies, plasma storms. But with the right navigator, we can slip through undetected. Donald studied the map, his enhanced mind rapidly calculating vectors and probabilities. It's risky, but it's our best shot. How soon can we move? We've assembled a strike team, Drake replied. Your people, plus some of Jarrett's best operatives. We launch in 6 hours. The next few hours were a blur of preparation. Donald pored over intelligence reports, familiarizing himself with the layout of the Cardassian base. He visited Azar in the medical bay, relieved to see her recovering from her wounds on Kepler 186F. As the deadline approached, Donald addressed the assembled strike team. This mission is volunteer only. The risks are extreme, and I won't order anyone to come with me. To a person, they stepped forward. The small fleet of ships slipped into the nebula corridor, navigating its treacherous currents with preternatural skill. Donald stood on the bridge of the lead vessel, every sense attuned to their surroundings. Jarrett's voice crackled over the comm, guiding them through the hazardous route. Cardassian sensor array coming up on our port side, Jarrett warned, initiating stealth protocols. Now. Donald held his breath as they drifted past the array, cloaked in the nebula's electromagnetic interference. Seconds ticked by, like hours, until Jarrett's relieved voice confirmed their success. We're through, approaching the shipyard base now. The strike team boarded their shuttlecraft, each vessel disguised with stolen Cardassian transponder codes. Donald led the first wave, his heart pounding as they approached the base's docking bay. Remember, he told his team, we're here for Thule. In and out, quick and clean. The docking procedure went smoothly, their forged credentials holding up under scrutiny. As they disembarked, Donald's enhanced hearing picked up the first hints of suspicion in the Cardassian guards' voices. Now, he signaled. The team exploded into action, neutralizing the guards with brutal efficiency. Alarms blared as they fought their way deeper into the base, following Jarrett's intel to Thule's holding cell. They found their comrade battered but alive, his eyes widening in disbelief as Donald blasted open the cell door. Took you long enough, Thule growled, but there was relief in his voice. Their extraction hit a snag as they neared the hangar bay. An imposing Cardassian blocked their path, flanked by a squad of elite guards. Donald Donovan, the Cardassian sneered. I am Commander Gorin. Your reputation precedes you. Donald raised his weapon. Stand aside, Gorin. This doesn't have to end in bloodshed. Gorin's response was to open fire. The team fell back, using Thule's former cell as a choke point. Plasma bolts sizzled through the air as they fought a desperate holding action. Jarrett, Donald shouted into his comm. We need immediate evac. A scream of pain cut through the chaos. Donald turned to see Azara crumple to the ground, a smoking wound in her side where she'd shielded him from enemy fire. Go, she gasped. I'll hold them off. Donald's mind raced, weighing options and probabilities in microseconds. He made his decision. Like hell, he growled, scooping Azara up in his arms. We all get out, or none of us do. Just as it seemed their position would be overrun, a tremendous explosion rocked the base. Drake's voice crackled over the comm. "Cavalry's here, Donald. Get to the hangars now." They fought their way through corridors filled with panicked Cardassians, finally reaching their shuttles. As they lifted off, Donald saw the space battle raging outside, Drake's fleet engaging the Cardassian defenders in a dazzling display of tactical brilliance. Their shuttle weaved through the chaos, dodging debris and weapons fire. Donald cradled Azara's unconscious form, willing her to hold on just a little longer. As they docked with Drake's flagship, medical teams rushed to meet them. Donald watched as they whisked Azara away, his heart heavy with worry and guilt. Drake appeared at his side, clapping a hand on his shoulder. "We need to talk, Donald. There's so much you don't know about what's really going on out here." Donald nodded, his mind still reeling from the day's events. "Lead the way, old friend. I have a feeling this is just the beginning." The acrid smell of burnt circuitry filled the air as Donald stepped onto the bridge of Drake's flagship. His muscles ached from the grueling escape, but adrenaline still surged through his veins. "What's the situation?" Donald demanded, his eyes scanning the tactical displays. Drake's face was grim. "We've received reports of coordinated attacks on human colonies across 3 sectors. The Cardassian extremists have escalated beyond anything we anticipated." Donald's teeth clenched. "How bad?" "Bad enough that we need to act now," Drake replied, pulling up a holographic map. "I've already mobilized the Sentinel faction. Jarrett's explorers are en route to provide additional support." "We're launching relief missions," Donald said, his tone leaving no room for argument. "We evacuate every civilian we can reach." Drake nodded, a hint of pride in his eyes. "I thought you'd say that. We've identified Hadrian Prime as our first priority. It's under heavy assault, but we have a narrow window to extract the colonists." The next hours were a blur of action. Donald assembled his team, briefing them on the high-stakes extraction. As they approached Hadrian Prime, the devastation became clear. Plumes of smoke rose from the colony's main settlement, and the skies were thick with enemy fighters. "This is going to be hot," Donald warned as their transport broke atmosphere. "Stick to the plan. We get those civilians out at any cost." The moment their boots hit the ground, chaos erupted. Cardassian saboteurs had infiltrated the colony's defenses, turning the evacuation into a desperate firefight. Donald's enhanced reflexes were pushed to their limits as he coordinated the defense, clearing a path for terrified colonists to reach the transports. Through the din of battle, Donald heard Drake's voice crackle over the comm. "Donald, we've got a problem at the spaceport. I'm going to hold them off, buy you some time." "Negative," Donald shouted, dispatching a Cardassian attacker with a precise burst of plasma fire. "Fall back to the extraction point." But Drake was already moving, leading a small team to engage the Cardassian forces, threatening their escape route. Donald watched in horror as Drake's signal winked out on his tactical display. "Drake's been taken," Thule reported, his voice tight with concern. Donald's mind raced, calculating options. "We finished the evac," he decided, even as his heart rebelled against leaving Drake behind. "Then we go after him." With the last transport safely away, Donald regrouped his team aboard their ship. He was about to lay out a rescue plan when the vessel's systems suddenly went dark. A holographic figure materialized on the bridge, a shimmering androgynous form that radiated ancient power. "Donald Donovan," it intoned. "I am the Overseer, the guiding intelligence of the Sentinels." Donald's hand instinctively went to his weapon. "What do you want?" "To offer you a choice," the Overseer replied. "Your mentor can be saved, and you can gain the power to strike back against those who threaten humanity. But the price is high." "What price?" The Overseer's form flickered. "Submit to the next stage of humanity's evolution. Bond with a progenitor artifact and unlock your true potential." Donald hesitated, weighing the implications. "And if I refuse?" "Then you remain as you are," the Overseer stated, insufficient to face the challenges ahead. With Drake's life hanging in the balance, Donald made his decision. "I'll do it." The ship lurched into motion, guided by unseen hands towards an abandoned progenitor outpost. As they approached, Donald felt a growing sense of unease. Whatever lay ahead would change everything. The artifact waited in a chamber of impossible geometry, pulsing with eldritch energy. Donald stepped forward, his fingers brushing its surface. Pain exploded through his body as the artifact began to rewrite his very being. Visions flooded his mind, glimpses of cosmic design, the grand tapestry of creation, humanity's destined role as inheritors of the progenitor's legacy. Donald screamed as his consciousness expanded beyond the confines of his fragile human form. And then darkness. When Donald next opened his eyes, he found himself in an unfamiliar medical bay. Thula stood nearby, relief evident on his alien features. "Welcome back," Thule said. "We weren't sure you'd make it." Donald tried to sit up, but his body felt wrong. Too light, too powerful. "What happened?" "The artifact nearly killed you," Thule explained. "We had to extract you. Azara's people helped." As if summoned by her name, Azara entered the room. "How are you feeling?" she asked, her eyes studying him with a mixture of concern and fascination. Donald was about to reply when a surge of energy coursed through him. The medical equipment around him began to float, responding to his uncontrolled telekinesis. A flash of precognition struck. He saw Cardassian ships, a massive dreadnought under construction. "We need to move," Donald gasped, fighting to control his new abilities. "Drake, the Cardassians, they're building something, a weapon that could destroy worlds." Thule and Azara exchanged glances. "We know," Thule said. "Jarrett's been gathering intel, but Donald, you're not stable. We need to—" Another surge of power cut him off as Donald inadvertently shorted out the room's systems. As alarms blared, Donald realized the truth of Thule's words. He was changed, evolved, but at what cost? "Tell me everything," Donald demanded, forcing his new powers into temporary submission. "We need a plan." As his allies began to brief him on the situation, Donald knew that his transformation was just the beginning. The real test lay ahead, rescuing Drake, stopping the Cardassian weapon, and somehow coming to terms with what he had become. Donald's vision swam as he tried to focus on Thula and Azara. The medical bay's equipment continued to float around them, responding to his uncontrolled telekinesis. "We need to stabilize you," Azara said, her voice tight with concern. "Your genetic structure is becoming increasingly unstable." As if in response, a holographic projection of the Overseer materialized before them. "Donald Donovan, your evolution is proceeding too rapidly. Without intervention, your body will fail." Thule stepped forward, his alien features set in commitment. "What can we do?" The Overseer's form flickered. "There is a path, but it is fraught with danger. You must embark on a journey to key progenitor sites across the galaxy. Only by interfacing with their technology can we hope to stabilize Donald's transformation." Donald pushed himself up, fighting against the surges of power threatening to overwhelm him. "Where do we start?" "Arcadius V," the Overseer replied. "A desert world housing an ancient gene-sculpting facility. But time is of the essence. Your condition will only worsen." Jarrett's voice crackled over the comm. "I've got coordinates. We can be there in 6 hours if we push the engines." Donald nodded, then immediately regretted the movement as a wave of nausea washed over him. "Let's go." The journey to Arcadius passed in a haze of pain and disorientation for Donald. He drifted in and out of consciousness, each awakening bringing new surges of uncontrolled power. By the time they entered orbit around the barren world, the ship's systems were barely functioning, victim to his erratic telekinesis. As they descended through the scorched atmosphere, Donald fought to focus on the mission ahead. The stark landscape below offered no hint of the advanced technology they sought. "Sensors are picking up a massive underground structure," Jarrett reported. "Definitely progenitor in origin." They set down near a featureless expanse of sand. As Donald stumbled from the ship, the ground beneath his feet began to shift and ripple in response to his unstable energy field. "We need to move fast," Thule urged, supporting Donald as they made their way towards a barely visible entrance in the rock face. The moment they crossed the threshold, ancient defenses sprang to life. Energy beams lanced out, forcing the team to take cover. Donald instinctively reached out with his mind, deflecting the attacks with raw telekinetic force. "Donald, don't!" Azara shouted. "You'll tear this place apart." Gritting his teeth, Donald reined in his powers. They pressed on, relying on Thula's reflexes and Jarrett's tech skills to navigate the gauntlet of traps and countermeasures. After what felt like hours, they reached a vast underground chamber. At its center stood a towering machine, its design an impossible blend of organic and technological components. "The Genesis engine," the overseer's voice echoed in Donald's mind. "You must interface with it. The process will be unpleasant." Donald approached the machine, his every step leaving scorched footprints in the metal floor. As he touched the control panel, tendrils of energy surged up his arm. He screamed as the machine pulled him in, his body contorting as it was flooded with progenitor genetic code. Donald's consciousness expanded, touching the very fabric of reality itself. He saw the birth and death of stars, the rise and fall of civilizations across countless worlds. Then, as suddenly as it began, it was over. Donald fell to his knees, gasping for breath. The wild energies that had been tearing him apart were momentarily quelled. "It worked," Azara said, relief evident in her voice as she scanned him with her medical tricorder. But even as she spoke, Donald felt the familiar tingling at the base of his skull. His powers were already beginning to surge once more. "A temporary solution," the overseer confirmed. "We must proceed to the next site immediately. Capron's trench awaits." Donald stood, his legs shaky but his drive firm. As they made their way back to the ship, he knew this was only the first step on a long and perilous journey. The fate of humanity and his own sanity hung in the balance. Donald's body trembled as he fought to contain the surging energies within him. The ship's hull groaned under the strain of his fluctuating powers. Azara's words echoed in his mind. A temporary solution. They needed to act fast. "Set course for Capron's trench," Donald commanded, his voice strained. Jarrett's fingers danced across the navigation console. "Negative. The overseer's signal is redirecting us. We're being pulled towards the galactic core." Thul's eyes widened. "The supermassive black hole? That's suicide." The overseer's holographic form materialized once more. "It is the only path forward. Within the singularity lies the key to Donald's stabilization, the progenitor ascension hub." As the ship accelerated towards their new destination, Donald's condition deteriorated rapidly. Reality seemed to warp around him, time stretching and compressing in nauseating waves. He caught fleeting glimpses of impossible vistas, entire civilizations rising and falling in the blink of an eye. "We need help," Azara said, her voice taut with worry. "Someone who can navigate us through the black hole's gravitational well." Jarrett nodded grimly. "I know just the person. Talara, a Zimrillian pilot. If anyone can get us through that maelstrom, it's her." Within hours, their crew had expanded. Talara, lithe and graceful, took her place at the helm. Her multifaceted eyes gleamed with anticipation at the challenge ahead. Beside her stood Zayden, a Chisrene scientist whose cybernetic implants hummed softly as he interfaced with the ship's systems. As they approached the galactic core, the vastness of space gave way to a swirling chaos of stars and gas. At the center of it all loomed their target, a monstrous void that devoured light itself. "Multiple contacts," Thul called out, his tentacles working furiously at the tactical station. "We've got company." The void of space erupted with weapons fire. Sleek predatory ships swarmed around them, their hulls adorned with familiar sigils. "Rogue Sentinels," Donald growled, recognizing the markings. "Led by Rictus." Talara's hands blurred across the controls, the ship dancing between streams of superheated plasma. "We can't fight our way through this," she hissed. "Not if we want to reach the singularity." Jarrett's face set in unwavering willpower. "I'll draw them off, give you the opening you need." Before anyone could protest, Jarrett's ship peeled away from their formation. It streaked towards the enemy fleet, weapons blazing. The distraction worked. A significant portion of Rictus's forces broke off to pursue. "Now's our chance," Zayden intoned, his cybernetic eye whirring as it calculated their trajectory. "We must breach the accretion disk." Talara nodded, guiding their vessel into the swirling maelstrom of superheated matter surrounding the black hole. The ship bucked and shuddered, alarms blaring as gravimetric shear threatened to tear them apart. Donald's powers flared uncontrollably, warping the very fabric of space-time around them. Xaden worked feverishly to counteract the effects, his augmentations allowing him to interface directly with the ship's systems. Just as they neared the event horizon, a massive warship decloaked directly in their path. Rictus's flagship. "Evasive maneuvers!" Thula shouted. Talara's response was instant. The ship lurched sickeningly as she executed a series of rapid hyperspace microjumps. Each transition sent waves of agony through Donald's unstable form. They emerged from the final jump mere meters from the event horizon. Warnings blared as the black hole's immense gravity began to pull them in. "This is it," Talara said, her voice steady despite the chaos around them. "Once we cross, there's no going back." Donald met the eyes of his crew, seeing commitment and fear in equal measure. He nodded once. "Take us in?" The ship plunged forward, crossing the threshold where light itself could not escape. As they entered the singularity's impossible realm, Donald's perception fractured. Past, present, and future blurred together in a kaleidoscope of potential realities. Through the haze of collapsing dimensions, Xaden's voice cut through. "I'm detecting a signal. The Ascension Hub. It's here." Their vessel pushed deeper into the singularity's core, reality bending around them in ways that defied comprehension. And there, suspended in the heart of the cosmic maelstrom, they saw it, a colossal progenitor dreadnought, pulsing with unfathomable power. As they approached the titanic vessel, Donald knew that whatever lay ahead would reshape not just his own destiny, but the fate of all humanity. The Ascension Hub loomed before them, a colossal structure pulsing with otherworldly energy. As their ship approached, Donald felt his consciousness expanding, transcending the boundaries of his physical form. The singularity's impossible realm twisted and warped around them, reality bending in ways that defied comprehension. "We're approaching the hub's core," Xaden announced, his cybernetic implants whirring as he interfaced with the ship's systems. Donald stumbled forward, his body racked with pain as the ascension process began. Tendrils of energy coursed through him, rewriting his very essence on a subatomic level. He gasped, his vision fracturing into a kaleidoscope of potential futures. "Donald!" Thule called out, reaching for his friend. But Donald was beyond physical touch now. His form began to dissolve, particles scattering into the swirling vortex of the singularity. In that moment of metamorphosis, a blinding flash erupted behind them. Rictus's flagship materialized, its hull crackling with eldritch energy. The rogue sentinel's face appeared on their view screen, twisted with malice and greed. "You will not deny me this power," Rictus snarled, brandishing an ancient weapon of progenitor design. Before anyone could react, Rictus fired. A beam of impossible light lanced out, striking the heart of the Ascension Hub. The delicate subspace matrices shuddered, overloading in a cascade of quantum instabilities. Alarms blared throughout their ship as the singularity's inner domains began to tear apart. Donald, his consciousness now spread across multiple dimensions, sensed the impending catastrophe. With the last vestiges of his human will, Donald reached out. Xaden and Talara found themselves suddenly enveloped in a cocoon of shimmering energy. "What's happening?" Talara cried out, her multifaceted eyes wide with fear. In a flash of quantum displacement, they vanished, pulled through a slipgate to the safety of deep space. Thule stumbled as a torrent of images flooded his mind. He saw gleaming cities spanning entire solar systems, countless alien races working in harmony, guided by the wisdom of evolved human intermediaries. It was a vision of the future Donald had fought for, a gift and a burden in one. As the higher dimensions of the singularity began to implode, Donald's expanded consciousness fragmented. His last thought was not of fear or regret, but of hope for the seeds he had planted. Thule watched in anguish as the swirling energies consumed the Ascension Hub, taking with them any trace of his dear friend. The ship bucked violently, systems failing as they were hurled back towards normal space. Light years away, a small escape pod drifted in the void. Inside, Talar and Xaden stirred, their bodies tingling with residual energy from their quantum leap. "We're alive?" Zayden murmured, his cybernetic eyes struggling to focus. Talara nodded grimly, her pilot's instincts already assessing their situation. "But where are we? And what happened to the others?" As they sifted through the pod's meager contents, they discovered fragments of progenitor technology, remnants of the brief uplift they had experienced during the battle. Though diminished, these artifacts hummed with potential. Zayden's augmented fingers traced the contours of a pulsing crystal. "These could be the key," he whispered, "to finishing what Donald started." Talara met his gaze, understanding dawning in her alien features. "Then we have work to do." On a distant world, Thula sat in quiet meditation, Donald's final vision replaying in his mind. He opened his eyes, a new drive hardening his features. Reaching for a datapad, he began to write. In the annals of galactic history, there are moments that reshape the very fabric of civilization. This is the story of one such moment and of the human who catalyzed it all. His name was Donald Donovan, and this is how he changed everything.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.